Ladies and gents, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Whether you're a Korean vet or a new player that is waiting for release, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So many people message me about not getting in dungeon runs, how to do dungeons or to explain mechanics, or to help them with bosses, etc., and fill in their random public lobbies. They also complain about never receiving lucent or gear from their own guild after capturing nodes, etc. I enjoy helping people, but I have my own group of friends as well. This video is for you. You shouldn't be outsourcing every day to complete content in your own game. If you find yourself outsourcing all the time, ask yourself, why am I even in this guild? Stop joining bad guilds just because a streamer is in them. Stop joining big guilds just because they're full and look good. Guilds can either be a healthy community or be toxic, but you don't have to be in any guild you don't want. So the real blame goes partially to you for putting up with a lot of toxic behavior on your part for personal reasons that vary. If your guild doesn't distribute loot correctly, that's entirely subjective, because I have heard horror stories and then followed up and found out that the player was actually just being a leech. It goes both ways. Narrative. But what constitutes stealing? Well, loot that you earn yourself from open world bosses that go straight to the guild leader or the top if you didn't consent to their terms. If they made it clear that it wouldn't happen, then it's not stealing. If it wasn't made clear, then it's a gray area. If they promised it wasn't going to happen, then it actually happens, then that's obvious stealing. Another reason is if you stay because the group is a massive alliance and lets you participate in conflict bosses and events, but doesn't run dungeons with you. Don't complain about the latter if that's what they set as their expectations. If you want to PvP but you joined a mega alliance, then don't complain that you can't fight your allies or if they tag your mobs. I heard it all the time back at launch with the HP group. You would never even touch the mobs to begin with, because instead you're going to have to fight every second. This used to be a big issue in the 1500 people Mega HP Alliance, which was exhausting to hear. Be smarter and look at the bigger picture. If you join a small guild for first pick on drops but can't compete for boons and riftstones, then don't complain. It doesn't make sense because it's an obvious answer that a small guild can never compete for those, but you benefit directly by getting loot priority first. There are pros and cons to every situation. If you stay just because they are a big guild but are unaware of their distribution system, then don't complain when they take your loot. Riftstone loot, boss loot, or don't even run content with you. It will always blow my mind that players will stay in groups like this, but who's really at fault? You can join a competitive guild where everyone PvPs and is self-sufficient, but don't be surprised if you don't meet the benchmark or gear or activity time and get booted, as I've seen happen before. Even in HP back at launch, they had a point system or DKP system to give items to their members, and people complained even then that their points weren't tallied. It's a game, and managing hundreds of people is not an easy task, so of course a records keeper could miss a few. But again, a responsibility that you don't have to deal with. But politics aside, sometimes they did miss a few, but then it would fall on your responsibility to screenshot and prove your own attendance if it was important to you. If you don't, then it really wasn't that important to you, because in different guilds I've joined, they each offered a follow-up to verify if the point systems where they tallied were accurate, but the proof always falls on you to provide. Each guild has their own way of gaining points, and if they have a point system for rolling on a guild loot or riftstone loot, it's a good guild. Even if guilds that just use a dice roll for luck, that's a good way as well. Otherwise, good luck. Now here's my tips to prepare for launch in the guild situation. If loot is your main goal, make your own guild, as it yields the fastest turnaround time in getting loot and full control. But guess what now? That responsibility falls on you. That means recruiting, inspecting builds, and gaining enough members to chase down to consistently do guild bosses. But guess what now? You're the bad guy if you take all the loot. You're going to be the bad guy if you don't win a siege, boonstone, or rift. You're the bad guy if you don't recruit enough people and members can't get their runs done. You might be accused of being greedy, or you might even have hidden loot goblins. As you can see here, this player joined this alt guild that I have and even had the nerve to say they never received loot. But the great thing about this game is receipts. There's a distribution history. The player was trying to cut in line for loot in a small guild, didn't get what they wanted, left the guild, and joined their actual guild. Some people do that. They'll leave a big guild to join a temporary small guild in hopes to snipe some loot and dip, but that's your issue to deal with. Pros and cons. Always understand the expectations of a guild before joining. If they are not clear, then ask. And if they don't have an answer or systems in place, don't join. You also have to deal with other guilds trying to poach your guild members. Take, for example, right here in Excelsior. You can't knock them for trying. I completely get the motive behind it, but be prepared. When guilds recruit, it's usually for either loot or to compete in PvP. For example, I haven't seen guilds actively recruiting till this recent update, and that's because the balance patch where guild versus guild is finally happening. So needing an active guild is necessary if you want to compete or contest in Siege, Rift, or Boon Wars, in which the current guild Sausage, Conquistador, and Opulence has taken over for the server Soda. Before the update, it was just Mega Zerg versus Broken Guilds, but now you can have a fair shot at competing for Rift or Boon, so you'll see shifts in guild activity. Now with the new system, it provides a more fair battle, so Mega Alliances take no effect on the battle in Boon and Rift Zones, but ask yourself, if I join this guild or create this guild, what will I get in return? If you don't want the effort of managing a guild, then join an alternate guild, where your main is in it, which has a high turnaround as most alt guilds have, usually sub 10 members. Once you feel geared enough, leave after guild raids to not miss out on the next week's loot, and then join a bigger guild for other rewards. My alt guild, for example, does a dentist 7 times a week, but we have 6 geared players. Not everyone can do that. I give myself and my other members pieces of gear to list on the auction house to gear their mains, or give directly to their mains. Pros of an alt guild are fast turnaround times, but negative is that you have no alliances or riftstones or boons because you can't compete in bigger events, which also locks you out of conflict events, which also yields boss drops that you will not have. Also, you may have a dictator take all the loot for themselves and kick you after 1 week, so know who you join before you do. You may have to dice roll or get a drop you didn't want ultimately, but patience wins, and deciding to choose the right group will benefit you. If you don't want to make a guild or join an alt guild, then join a bigger guild that plays great politics in building alliances, but understand what they offer and what you offer. It's a mutual system. They benefit from your attendance by participating in bigger large-scale wars, PvP at events, world bosses, rifts, treasures, time zones, etc., and running content and teaching one another. And you benefit by being there. If they don't do any of these for you, then why are you in there? For example, Ethereum, they just joined the Soda server, and with 30 strong in a North American time zone, they can dominate even the current geared guilds when working together at their own prime times. They brought back confidence to other guilds that had low activity, such as Fusion and Synergy, to be an active group again, which is healthy for the server, otherwise one group dominated. All the other guilds that couldn't compete are slowly getting absorbed into Ethereum, which is healthy for the server because now there is a balanced form of PvP and not just the same group dominating. Despite only being a week to a month old, they can contest because in games like this, it's a matter of how many players you have on your side. 30-to-1 ratio will always win. It doesn't matter how well geared you are. They are one guild though, as you can see here during the nighttime hours during a conflict event. If you choose the wrong alliance or guild to support, you can't even stay alive long enough to receive rewards. Ethereum, Bourbon, Fusion would get wiped at this conflict boss. Getting wiped doesn't usually matter, especially on these types of bosses, but it does matter when it's an arc boss. Being unable to get loot can usually set you back for a long time, since these bosses only spawn once a week. So the reason I am saying all this is because I don't want you to be that player that sits at the edge of the safe zone or avoiding events because you're not a part of a group, because of bad decisions, ego, or just blind loyalty to a dead guild. Join a healthy competitive group, but also be self-sufficient and aware and show up. Everyone wants to be a leader, but doesn't want to do the actual work and lead. Nobody wants to follow, but you don't have the skills to lead a group either. So instead of complaining to yourself, really use your head and decide what's best for you. It doesn't matter what others think because the server will hate you or like you based off their own personal agenda. Take, for example, this guy. Super chill, won't show his name, but once I joined Sausage, he refused to run content with myself because of the guild I joined. Mind you, after the disband of HP, I ran solo for about 3 months, so I eventually joined the guild that was obviously winning events. Most NA guilds were dead at this point. I don't hate him for it. It's just a game, but some people can't distinguish video games from real life, and that's their prerogative. Personally, I respect it because having guild pride is necessary to want to compete. If you ever played a sport, you know what I mean. You can't support the Rams and then and also support a rival team or vice versa. Technically you can, but where's the fun and competitive spirit if you're that guy that doesn't pick a team? I personally will run with everyone PvE wise, but on the field I'm coming for you because it's all part of the game and good fun. This was a rant I wanted to share for a while, so take it with a grain of salt. Realistically speaking, I wanted to give props to all the guilds I mentioned to this video because they actually have a presence in Soda. And dislike them if you will, but they put together a group, which is something most people can't even do. So have you guys ever joined a toxic guild? If so, why did you stay? That's pretty much it. And also, I know you guys have been waiting for the chamber video. I've been safe keeping it for a while, but I think it's time to share it with you. So that will happen soon. So stay blessed, folks. I'll see you next time.